Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping into one of the most, well, intensely scrutinized upcoming EVs, the Volkswagen ID.4 2026 model. We've
Yeah.
got a stack of articles here, describing it as a really anticipated family SUV, promising that German engineering plus modern EV tech blend.
Yeah.
But our mission today, I think, is to figure out if this is just an update or maybe a necessary mea culpa from VW.
Oh, it's absolutely the latter. I mean, look, the stakes couldn't really be higher for Volkswagen here.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at what the analysts are saying, Edmunds is very clear on this overhaul, this big change. It's seen not just as like an improvement, but as a survival necessity.
Survival.
Seriously,
Huh?
VW has to transform the ID.4. It went from being just solid, but let's face it, flawed, into what they hope is an indispensable competitor.
So capable of challenging the big guys, like the Model Y.
Exactly. If they don't pull this off, they just fall further behind benchmarks like the Tesla Model Y. It's that
Yeah.
critical.
Okay, so we're focusing on a pretty clear trade-off then. The 2026 model, yes, it's about boosting performance, boosting range, but mainly it sounds like it's about fixing those profound operational flaws, the ones that really define the previous models.
Precisely. Especially around reliability and that user interface.
Right.
And, to really appreciate the scale of these fixes, you almost have to understand the damage these issues did to consumer trust. It was significant.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into all the shiny new features, maybe let's unpack those key pain points VW is, well, publicly trying to overcome.
Okay, good idea. Let's start where most drivers live, the dashboard. The biggest, most widespread complaint, you see it everywhere, owner groups, forums. That infamous infotainment struggle.
Oh, yeah.
That big touchscreen was just a constant source of frustration. So many reports of it being painfully slow, non-responsive, freezing up.
Or just spontaneously rebooting while you're driving.
Exactly, mid-navigation or something.
And look, this wasn't just a minor annoyance. The source material, it explicitly calls these out as deep software flaws, fundamental flaws.
Right.
It undermined the whole premium positioning of the car. It meant owners had to make awkward trips to the dealership for fixes that, frankly, should have been simple over-the-air updates.
Yeah, seamless updates are kind of expected now, aren't they?
They really are.
And that takes us to that other really controversial bit, the control trap. VW went all in on replacing physical buttons for, essential things like climate control, audio volume.
With those capacitive touch sliders and flat touchstones, awful.
Yeah, you had to, swipe repeatedly or tap just right, often meaning you had to look away from the road for simple stuff.
And what's fascinating, or maybe just frustrating, is that those capacitive controls were terrible precisely because they lacked that tactile feedback. We know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physical controls, you can operate them by feel, where the knob is, the button. When you switch to a flat, featureless surface, you lose that. It was just a usability nightmare.
Distracting and, like you said, potentially dangerous.
Widely criticized for exactly that. Felt like a step backwards in functionality.
The worst kind of regression, yeah. But, okay, beyond the frustrating screens, there were deeper issues. The core power reliability. And this is where it gets really serious.
Yes, these were not just cosmetic glitches. We saw recurrent reports, big problems,
Yeah.
unexplained error messages popping up, sudden power loss while driving.
What owners called stalling, right, losing power completely.
Yeah, imagine that happening.
Okay.
And then there was the premature, really widespread failure of the standard 12-volt battery.
Okay, hang on. Explain the 12-volt thing again. Because the car's powered by that huge EV battery pack, right? Why does the little 12-volt battery matter so much?
That's a really common question, actually. So in an EV, the big high-voltage pack that drives the wheels, but the small low-voltage 12-volt battery that powers all the essential control systems.
Like the computers.
Exactly. The computers, the door locks, the screens, the contactors that connect the big battery.
Uh,
Crucially, the ability to even wake up the car. So if that 12-volt battery fails early, which it apparently did quite often, the car is literally a brick. It won't start, won't recognize the key, can't engage the high-voltage system, nothing.
wow, that's a major reliability hit, especially when you're trying to convince people to switch to electric.
Massive hit to consumer trust. Huge.
Okay, so that establishes a pretty big deficit the 2026 model needs to overcome. And then finally, there were some critiques about the interior materials too.
Yeah, less critical perhaps, but still noted. While the cabin was generally seen as spacious, critics felt the reliance on hard plastics, especially lower down on the doors and dash, made it feel a bit less luxurious.
Less polished than competitors at a similar price point, maybe.
Precisely. It didn't quite match the price tag in terms of tactile feel for some people.
Okay, so if you're VW, you've got this checklist. Fix the software, fix the controls, boost reliability, upgrade the interior feel. It's quite the list.
It is. And that's why this 2026 model isn't just a facelift. It's a critical overhaul.
Right. Let's talk about that overhaul then, starting with what I think is maybe the most important fix, because it really shows they listened. The cabin controls.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is the humility it takes for a huge car company to reverse course on a design trend they sort of pushed.
True.
The biggest anticipated improvement is the return to sanity. Backlit physical controls for climate and audio. Real buttons.
Backlit too, that's key, so you can see them at night.
Exactly. It's a direct, tangible move away from those purely capacitive controls.
Publications like Car and Driver, Inside EVs, they've highlighted this reversal, calling it proof that, usability is finally winning out over just pure digital novelty.
It's a huge win for driver focus, absolutely.
Definitely.
And while they're restoring that physical function, the tech underneath is also getting a boost. The cabin itself, it still keeps that airy, open feel.
Yeah.
That's thanks to the dedicated EV platform, the MEB platform.
Right, the flat floor, no transmission tunnel.
Which really maximizes passenger space. Feels bigger inside than you might expect.
And this centerpiece screen, it's getting bigger, a 12-inch central touchscreen now.
Yes, up from the previous size. But it's not just about the size, right? That was never the core issue.
No, the performance was the problem.
Exactly. Crucially, this new unit is apparently paired with a faster processor, a faster CPU. It's engineered specifically to stop the lag and the freezing we saw before.
So the hardware catches up to the software demands.
Hopefully. And then the software updates delivered over the air can actually, perform reliably without bogging the system down.
Makes sense. And they're also tackling that quality critique with some luxury touches.
Seems so. Higher trims are slated to get things like 12-way power-adjustable front seats with heating, ventilation, even massage functions.
Okay, getting fancy.
Yeah. And you can also apparently spec an optional Harman Kardon premium sound system. So directly addressing that feeling that maybe the interior felt a bit basic before.
Okay, sounds promising. But even with the tech upgrades, it's still a family SUV. Practicality has to be there.
Oh, absolutely key. And it maintains really good utility. You get 543 liters of storage behind the back seats.
Which is pretty generous.
It is. And that expands to a massive 1,575 liters when you fold those seats flat.
And again, that flat loading floor, benefit of the MEB platform, makes loading bulky stuff easier.
It really does. Less of a lip to lift things over.
And here's a detail I always find surprising for an SUV this size. The maneuverability.
The turning radius, yes.
It's exceptionally tight, isn't it, thanks to how the motors and wheels are set up.
It really is. It's a genuine urban advantage. Makes parking, navigating tight city streets, much easier than you'd think for a vehicle with this footprint.
It's one of those quality of life things that you don't appreciate until you experience it.
Okay, so let's pivot now to performance and range, the other big part of the overhaul needed to properly compete with, say, the Model Y.
Right, the power bump. It looks significant. The standard rear-wheel drive models, they're expected to get around 282 horsepower. And quite a bit of torque, 402 pound-feet.
That's a healthy amount of torque, yeah.
Yeah.
A noticeable jump from the earlier base models. Makes it feel punchier off the line.
But if you want, properly quick family transport, the all-wheel drive version, the dual motor setup, that's where the real action is.
That's the one. The combined power there is estimated to hit about 335 horsepower.
And that AWD power, it translates directly to speed, presumably. What are the sources saying about acceleration? 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kilometer?
Yeah, 0 to 100 kilometers, which is about 0 to 62 mile riding.
Right.
The estimates are around 5.2 seconds or maybe even a little less.
Okay, so that puts it firmly in quick EV territory, not, ludicrous speed, but plenty fast for merging and overtaking.
Absolutely satisfying for most drivers in a family vehicle. Now, for people doing longer distances, the real game changer has to be the range, right? What are we looking at there?
So the battery capacity, the net capacity, stays around 77.0 kilowatt hours, but it seems the focus is on efficiency improvements.
Getting more miles out of the same size battery. Smart.
Exactly. VW is targeting range figures that push well beyond 500 kilometers on that European WLTP cycle.
Which tends to be a bit optimistic compared to real-world driving or EPA figures in the U.S.
Right. More importantly, for practical use, that probably translates to a real-world range somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, 300 to 350 miles.
Okay, now that 350-mile figure is crucial because that moves the ID.4 from just being a great commuter car.
To being genuinely road trip viable for a family.
Which is exactly what analysts like Edmunds said they needed to achieve. Makes it a much more versatile vehicle.
Definitely broadens its appeal. And okay, if you are road tripping, charging speed is the next big hurdle. Any advancements there?
Yes, another area of focus. We're expecting a bump in the DC fast charging speed, up to 175 kilowatts, maybe even peaks of 200 kilowatts according to some projections.
Okay, and what does that mean in terms of time spent charging, like the typical 10% to 80% charge?
That speed increase should allow the ID.4 to do that 10 to 80% charge in roughly 28 minutes. Maybe a bit less under ideal conditions.
28 minutes, that's pretty quick. But we need context here, right?
Yeah.
Because we keep hearing about competitors charging even faster.
That's true, and it's down to the underlying tech. The ID.4, like most cars on that MEB platform, uses a 400-volt electrical architecture.
Okay.
Competitors like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, they use newer 800-volt architectures. And that fundamentally allows for quicker charging peaks and, importantly, maintaining high speeds for longer during the charge.
Ah, a flatter charging curve.
Exactly. So while the ID.4's 175, 200 kilowatt peak is a really good improvement for VW, it's still sort of playing catch-up to that ultra-fast 800-volt segment.
So better charging, but maybe not quite class-leading speed yet?
That seems fair to say. They've improved the experience, but haven't totally revolutionized it compared to the fastest chargers out there.
Got it. But overall, the driving experience itself, the ride, that remains consistent with what the ID.4 was known for. Smooth, comfortable, quiet.
Yes, that seems to be the case. The suspension is generally tuned for, civility, absorbing bumps well, prioritizing passenger comfort over sharp, sporty handling, which makes sense for a family SUV.
Right, and if you're talking about a family SUV prioritizing comfort and civility, safety is paramount, non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And this is another area where VW generally doesn't mess around.
Yeah, the ID.4's safety record is already world-class, right? Gives you peace of mind. We're talking top ratings across the board.
Mm-hmm. NHTSA 5-star rating in the U.S., an IIHS top safety pick designation, and also a Euro NCAP P 5-star rating over in Europe. Consistent high marks.
And those ratings, they're not just stickers. They reflect the core engineering, but it's also about the active safety systems, the tech.
Right. The passive safety, the crash structure, is backed up by that comprehensive IQ Drive safety suite. And that's expected to get even more refined for 2026.
So what's included in IQ Drive again?
It's a suite of advanced driver assistance systems. ADS. Includes things like travel assist, which gives you semi-autonomous driving help on the highway.
Lane centering and adaptive cruise control working together.
Exactly. Plus, front assist for collision warnings and emergency braking, adaptive cruise control on its own, and active side assist for blind spot monitoring. This is a pretty complete package.
Designed to reduce driver fatigue and ideally prevent accidents in the first place. So, okay, given all these fixes, the UI, reliability, performance, range, safety, how does the 2026 ID.4 stack up now in that crowded EV battlefield?
Well, it definitely solidifies its position as a major contender again. The primary rivals, they remain the same. Obviously, the Tesla Model Y.
Our benchmark.
The benchmark. The very high-tech Hyundai Ioniq 5. And then you've got that ever-growing field of often more budget-friendly global players like the MGZ SEV, or maybe even something like the BYD Seagull at the lower end, though maybe not a direct competitor.
Right, and pricing-wise, it needs to stay competitive, doesn't it? Especially with these upgrades.
Absolutely crucial. Sources are estimating the starting range for the base rear-wheel drive models will be competitive. Probably somewhere between, say, $42,000 and $47,000 US.
Okay.
Climbing up towards maybe $59,000 for the top-tier all-wheel drive Pro S Plus trim with all the bells and whistles.
So that pricing, combined with fixing the major flaws, makes it a much stronger proposition than before.
Much more appealing, yes. And for North American buyers specifically, there's that big logistical advantage. It's built in the U.S., right?
Yeah, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
And that domestic manufacturing is key. It means North American buyers can potentially get significant EV tax credits, government incentives.
Which can dramatically lower the actual out-of-pocket cost.
Exactly. An advantage many rivals built overseas might not have, depending on the latest rules.
Good point. And finally, that long-term reassurance piece. The battery warranty. Still solid.
Yes, VW is providing that standard but very important coverage. 8 years or 160,000 kilometers, which is about 100,000 miles.
And that guarantees a minimum battery capacity.
Guarantees it retains at least 70% of its original capacity throughout that period. That's pretty much the industry standard now. It gives you long-term peace of mind about battery degradation.
Okay. So circling back to where we started, our initial mission, the
Right.
ID.4 2026, it really does seem like it's not just an evolution. It feels like a necessary correction.
Definitely a correction.
They seem to have focused relentlessly on fixing those past pain points. The usability nightmare, the reliability questions, the interior refinement. It's shaping up to be a much stronger, much more pragmatic contender in this really fierce family SUV market.
It is. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that the problems they fixed, those capacitive touch controls everyone hated, the buggy software, these weren't just VW problems.
No, you saw similar complaints across the industry.
Exactly. VW is just maybe one of the most prominent examples or victims of chasing that minimalist tech trend too far too fast.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting then, thinking bigger picture. If this public return to physical tactile buttons in the ID.4 2026 actually works, if it's a commercial success, if people buy it because it's easier and less frustrating to use, does this signal a broader course correction, maybe across the whole auto industry?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, after maybe a decade of car makers chasing that sleek, minimalist, all-screen design, largely pioneered by Tesla, let's be honest, does usability, does tactile feedback finally win out?
Will this maybe signal the beginning of the end for those completely buttonless dashboards that just seem to proliferate everywhere for a while?
Could it force designers to prioritize driver focus, actual ease of use over purely futuristic aesthetics? It's a huge potential shift. What are the implications for how every car, EV or not, is designed from here on out?
A really compelling question to think about as we wait and see if tactile buttons truly make a comeback. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into the Volkswagen ID.4 2026.